The Pacific Northwest rain fell in sheets, turning the streets of Port Madison into rivers of gray. But inside the Cedar Street Veterans Center, the world was warm and dry, smelling of fresh coffee and old books. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Kane sat in the corner of the reading room, a fortress of silence he'd claimed every morning for the past 3 weeks of mandatory leave. At 34, Marcus looked like he'd been carved from the same Douglas fir that surrounded the coastal town. Tall, solid, weathered by storms both literal and metaphorical. His hands, scarred and calloused, turned the pages of a worn paperback with surprising gentleness. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. He'd read it 17 times, once in a sandstorm outside Kandahar while mortars fell like thunder. Beside his chair, lying on a faded rug that had seen better decades, was Atlas. The German shepherd was massive, 95 pounds of muscle and loyalty, with a coat of black and tan that bore the silver scars of service. A puckered burn mark ran along his left flank, a souvenir from a vehicle-borne IED that had taken the lives of 2 Marines Marcus still saw in his dreams. Atlas wasn't just retired. He was medically discharged, diagnosed with PTSD that manifested in violent tremors during thunderstorms and an obsessive need to check every corner of every room. Marcus understood. He did the same thing. "You doing okay there, Commander?" The voice belonged to Dorothy Chen, the center's director. She was in her 60s, a former Army nurse who'd seen Da Nang and never talked about it. She refilled his coffee without asking, adding the 2 sugars he pretended he didn't need. "Readin' Stoic Philosophy at 0800, Marcus replied without looking up. "Livin' the dream, Dorothy." She smiled, a sad, knowing expression. "Your father used to sit in that exact chair, after Desert Storm, before the cancer." Marcus finally looked up. His eyes were gray, the color of the ocean before a storm. "I know." The center was his inheritance, though his father had left it to the town, not to him. "Warriors need a place to land," the will had read. "Make sure they have one when you're gone." Marcus checked his watch. 0815, 15 more days of leave. 15 more days before he shipped back to Virginia, back to his team, back to the controlled chaos that made more sense than this suffocating peace. Atlas lifted his head suddenly, ears swiveling toward the window. A low rumble started in his chest, not aggressive, but alert. The dog had heard something Marcus's merely human ears couldn't catch. "What is it, boy?" Marcus murmured, his hand instinctively moving to the knife clipped inside his waistband. Old habits died hard. Atlas stood, shaking himself, his tags jingling softly. He walked to the window and placed his paws on the sill, looking out at the rain-soaked street. Marcus joined him, scanning the view with tactical precision. Across the street, the soup kitchen was opening its doors. A line of humanity, worn, coats, plastic-wrapped belongings, the invisible citizens of prosperity, shuffled forward into warmth. "They're just people, Atlas," Marcus said softly. "Stand down." But the dog remained tense, watching something Marcus couldn't see, or maybe watching nothing at all, lost in memories of threats that no longer existed. Marcus understood that too. He returned to his chair, but he didn't pick up the book. Instead, he stared at his hands, at the scars that mapped a decade of violence in the service of peace. He thought about the therapist's words from yesterday. "You can't save everyone, Commander. Sometimes survival is enough." But survival had never been enough. Not for Marcus Kane. Not for the warrior who'd taken an oath that had no expiration date, no geographic boundary, no statute of limitations on protecting the defenseless. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing the streets clean, preparing the stage for what was about to unfold. 6 blocks away, in the narrow alley behind Sullivan's Market, Emma Reeves woke to the sound of her own shivering. She was 28 years old, though the streets had added a decade to her face. Her blonde hair, unwashed and tangled, fell across shoulders wrapped in a donated coat 3 sizes too large. Her hands, small, delicate hands that had once typed legal briefs in a downtown firm, were raw and cracked from the cold. The tremor that had started in her right hand 2 years ago had cost her everything. First the job, then the health insurance, then the apartment when the medical bills piled higher than the Space Needle. Her family had tried to help, but addiction ran in her bloodline, and when the pain medication became the only thing that stopped the shaking, they'd given her an ultimatum she couldn't meet. Now, home was a piece of cardboard under a loading dock overhang, and family was something else entirely. "Mornin', baby girl," Emma whispered, reaching into her sleeping bag. The puppy that emerged was impossibly small, maybe 8 weeks old, with oversized paws and ears that hadn't yet figured out how to stand up properly. She was a German Shepherd mix, brown and black with a white stripe down her nose that made her look perpetually surprised. Emma had found her 3 days ago, shivering in a dumpster, abandoned by someone who'd decided a living creature was trash. She'd named her Hope because naming things gave them power, and power was something Emma desperately needed to believe in. "You hungry?" Emma pulled out half a sandwich she'd saved from the soup kitchen yesterday. White bread, processed cheese, and something that might have been turkey. She tore off small pieces, feeding them to Hope one at a time, watching the puppy's tail wag with each bite. The sandwich was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Emma would eat the crust later, but Hope needed the protein. Growing puppies needed nutrients. Emma had Googled it on the library computer before they'd kicked her out for falling asleep at the terminal. "We're going to be okay," Emma murmured, stroking the puppy's soft fur. "Just need to make it through winter. Spring's coming. Spring brings jobs, opportunities. We'll get a room, a small one, just big enough for you and me." It was a lie she told herself every morning. A prayer to gods who'd stopped listening when her hands started shaking. Hope licked her face, and Emma smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her gaunt features into something beautiful, something that remembered who she used to be. She didn't know that this morning would be different. She didn't know that 6 blocks away, a warrior was drinking coffee and reading philosophy. She didn't know that in less than an hour, the fragile piece of her invisible existence would shatter, and the world would finally see her. But Hope knew. Dogs always know. The puppy stared toward Sullivan's Market, toward the black Mercedes sedan pulling into the loading zone, toward the storm that was coming, dressed in expensive clothes and entitled Rage. Trenton Ashford III didn't just arrive in Port Madison, he invaded it. His Mercedes AMG GT63S, matte black and worth more than most people's houses, took up 2 handicap spaces as he threw open the door without checking his mirrors. At 24, Trenton had the kind of face that magazines called striking. Sharp cheekbones, perfect teeth, courtesy of $40,000 in orthodontics, and eyes that had never seen consequence. He wore a Tom Ford suit that cost $8,000 and loafers that cost another $2,000. Everything about him screamed money, but the particular kind of money that bought silence instead of respect. "This place is absolutely third world," Trenton sneered into his phone, loud enough for the street to hear. I told Father we should have just demolished it and built condos. These people don't appreciate preservation. They don't appreciate anything." He was talking about the historic Sullivan's Market building, a century-old brick structure that Ashford Development had been trying to acquire for 3 years. The owner, a stubborn widow in her 80s, kept refusing offers that climbed higher than reason. Today, Trenton was here to make an offer she couldn't refuse. Not a financial one, a different kind entirely. Behind him, 2 men emerged from the Mercedes. They weren't security. They were worse. Chad Brookshire and Kyle Maddox, trust fund casualties in their own right, the kind of men who'd never heard no and didn't plan to start now. CTA #1 after 250 words. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. I'm telling you, this place has craft cocktail bar written all over it, Chad said, vaping something that smelled like synthetic fruit. Gut the first floor, expose the brick, charge $18 for old fashions. We'd print money. After we clear out the riffraff, Kyle added, gesturing vaguely toward the alley. This whole block needs a pressure wash, figuratively and literally. Trenton smiled, the expression of a shark that had just smelled blood. His father, Trenton Ashford II, the real estate magnate who owned half the waterfront, had taught him that Port Madison had 2 kinds of people, the wealthy and the people who served them. The homeless didn't even register as human. "Let's get coffee first," Trenton said, pocketing his phone. "I want to be properly caffeinated when I evict that old woman." They walked toward Sullivan's entrance, but Trenton stopped suddenly. His nose wrinkled in disgust. "Do you smell that?" He sniffed dramatically. "Like wet dog and failure." The source was immediately obvious. The alley adjacent to the market's loading dock had become a makeshift shelter. Cardboard, plastic tarps, sleeping bags, the visible architecture of invisible people. "Jesus Christ," Trenton said, his voice dripping with contempt. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is what happens when bleeding heart liberals run cities. You enable this behavior, and it spreads like a disease." Chad laughed, pulling out his phone. "Bro, wait. This is content. Day in the life of Seattle's homeless problem. My followers eat this shit up." Kyle joined him. Both phones now pointed at the alley like weapons. "They're probably all on fentanyl. I read an article." Emma heard them before she saw them. The voices, young, male, privileged, cut through the morning like broken glass. She instinctively pulled Hope closer, making herself smaller, practicing the invisibility that kept her safe. But Hope, with the fearless stupidity of puppies everywhere, chose that moment to bark. Not a threatening sound, a squeaky, high-pitched announcement that roughly translated to, "Hello, I exist, pet me." Trenton's head snapped toward the sound. His eyes, cold, calculating, locked onto Emma's hiding spot beneath the overhang. "Oh, this is perfect," he said, his voice shifting into something darker. "Absolutely perfect." He started walking toward the alley, toward Emma, toward Hope, and his friends followed, phones raised, smiling. The storm had arrived, and it wore a Tom Ford suit. "I'll generate the complete 9,000, 12,000-word script section by section, maintaining the exact structure, emotional beats, and word counts you've specified. Each section will follow the narrative arc from your inspiration stories, while adapting them to your billionaire's son, homeless woman, boiling water premise. I'll continue generating your complete script now." Trenton Ashford III stood at the mouth of the alley, looking down at Emma the way someone might examine a stain on an expensive carpet, with disgust and the certainty that it could be removed with enough money. "Excuse me," he said, his voice dripping with false politeness. "Do you have permission to be here? This is private property." Emma kept her head down, arms wrapped protectively around Hope. "I'm not hurting anyone. I'll move. Just give me a minute." "A minute?" Trenton laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "You've been squatting here for what? Days? Weeks? Do you have any idea how much property value you're destroying just by existing?" Chad stepped closer, phone still recording. "Bro, she's got a dog. That's definitely a health code violation. Probably animal cruelty too. That thing looks malnourished." Hope, blissfully unaware of the threat, wiggled in Emma's arms, trying to lick her face. "She's not malnourished," Emma said quietly, her voice trembling. "I feed her before I eat. She's healthy. We're not bothering anyone." "We're not bothering anyone," Kyle mocked in a high-pitched voice. "You're literally living in garbage behind a business. You're the human equivalent of a rat." Trenton crouched down, bringing himself to Emma's level, but not out of kindness. It was the posture of a predator getting a better angle. "Here's what's going to happen," he said, his voice low and menacing. "You're going to take your flea-ridden mutt and your shopping cart of disease, and you're going to leave Port Madison. Today. Because if I see you here tomorrow, I'm going to have animal control take that dog, and I'm going to have the police arrest you for trespassing." Emma's grip on Hope tightened. "You can't just—" "I can do whatever I want." Trenton cut her off. "My father owns this block. He owns the police chief. He owns the mayor. You're nobody. You don't even exist." Something in Emma snapped. Maybe it was the weeks of sleeping on concrete. Maybe it was the hunger that made her stomach feel like it was eating itself. Maybe it was the way this overgrown child in his designer suit thought a human life could be erased with money. She stood up, still holding Hope, and looked Trenton in the eye. "I'm somebody," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. "And you don't own me." For a second, Trenton looked genuinely surprised. The homeless woman had talked back. The invisible had made itself seen. Then his face twisted into something ugly, something that revealed the cruelty that money usually kept hidden. "You want to be somebody?" Trenton snarled. "Fine, let's make you famous." He turned to Chad and Kyle. "Get this on video, clear shot. I want her face." Then he reached out and grabbed Hope. Emma screamed, "No!" She tried to pull the puppy back, but Kyle grabbed her arm, wrenching it behind her back with casual violence. Hope yelped, terrified, squirming in Trenton's grip. The puppy was so small his hands nearly encircled her entire body. "Please," Emma sobbed, struggling against Kyle's hold. "Please, don't hurt her. She's just a baby. Take anything. Take my stuff, just don't hurt her." Trenton looked at the crying woman, the terrified puppy, and the phones recording everything. In his mind, he was teaching a lesson. In reality, he was revealing exactly who he'd always been. "You know what I think?" Trenton said, his voice casual, conversational. "I think people like you shouldn't be allowed to have pets. You can't even take care of yourself. This animal deserves better." "Then take her to a shelter," Emma begged. "Please, just don't—" "Shelters cost money," Trenton interrupted. "Money my tax dollars pay for. No, I think the humane thing is to put it out of its misery. Save the taxpayers the expense." He looked around the alley, his eyes landing on something that made him smile. A coffee shop employee had just emptied a large pot of still steaming coffee into the dumpster, preparing to brew a fresh batch. The metal pot sat on the ground, wisps of steam rising from the dark liquid inside. "Perfect," Trenton muttered. Emma saw where he was looking. Her blood turned to ice. "No, no, please, God, please, no." Trenton walked toward the pot, carrying the whimpering puppy. Chad and Kyle laughed, thinking it was a bluff, a scare tactic, content for the gram. Emma fought like a wild animal, screaming, kicking, but Kyle was bigger and stronger, and her malnourished body had no leverage. Trenton reached the pot. The coffee was still hot, not boiling, but hot enough to burn, hot enough to scar, hot enough to teach a lesson to someone who'd dared to claim she was somebody. He held hope over the pot. "Maybe this will help you remember your place," Trenton said. He dropped the puppy. Hope's scream was a sound that shouldn't exist in the world. High-pitched, terrified, the cry of an innocent creature experiencing agony it couldn't understand. The puppy splashed into the scalding coffee, thrashing, drowning, burning. Emma's scream joined the puppy's, a harmony of horror. Trenton stepped back, laughing, watching the animal suffer like it was entertainment. "Get it out! Get it out!" Emma shrieked, finally breaking free from Kyle's grip. She lunged for the pot, plunging her hands into the scalding liquid, ignoring the searing pain as she scooped out the puppy. Hope was limp, soaked, whimpering. Her fur was matted with coffee, and red welts were already forming on her pink belly where the skin had burned. Emma collapsed to the ground, cradling the puppy against her chest, sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. Trenton looked at his handiwork, brushed imaginary dust off his suit, and started to walk away. "Come on," he said to his friends. "Let's get that coffee. I'm starving." He took 3 steps. Then the alley went dark. Marcus Kane had been walking Atlas past Sullivan's Market when the screaming started. Most people would have frozen, trying to process what they were hearing. Marcus's body reacted before his mind caught up. He didn't think. He moved. Atlas erupted into a full sprint, and Marcus let the leash go, trusting the dog's instincts. They'd hunted bomb makers together in Fallujah. They'd cleared compounds in Yemen. The dog knew the sound of a victim. Marcus rounded the corner into the alley at a dead run, his eyes scanning the scene with the tactical precision of 1,000 operations. 3 males, early 20s, expensive clothes. 1 female, late 20s on the ground, injured hands, cradling something. Smell of coffee and burned flesh. No visible weapons, but body language suggested recent violence. Atlas reached the group first. The German shepherd didn't attack. He positioned himself between Emma and the 3 men, hackles raised, teeth bared, releasing a growl that sounded like it came from the earth itself. Chad screamed and stumbled backward. Kyle dropped his phone. Marcus was there a heartbeat later. He didn't announce himself. He didn't ask questions. His eyes found Emma on the ground, saw her burned hands, saw the puppy, burned, barely breathing, and understood everything. His gaze shifted to Trenton, who was frozen in place, looking at the massive dog blocking his path. "Who did this?" Marcus's voice was quiet, conversational, terrifying in its calmness. "Excuse me?" Trenton tried to recover his confidence. "This is none of your business. I'm handling a trespassing situation." Marcus looked at the coffee pot, at the puppy's burns, at Emma's hands. He looked back at Trenton. "I'll ask one more time," Marcus said, his voice dropping even lower. "Who did this?" Something in his eyes, The absolute certainty of violence, the promise of consequences, made Kyle crack. "He did!" Kyle pointed at Trenton. "It was his idea. We were just recording. We didn't know he'd actually—" "Shut up," Trenton snapped. Then he turned to Marcus, trying to regain control. "Do you know who I am? My father is Trenton Ashford. Ashford Development. We own half this city. If you touch me, you'll spend the rest of your life in court." Marcus took one step forward, just one. But the way he moved, balanced, controlled, ready, made all three men flinch. "I'm Lieutenant Commander Marcus Kane, United States Navy," Marcus said quietly. "I've killed 14 men in hand-to-hand combat. 12 of them thought they couldn't be touched too." The silence that followed was absolute. "But I'm not going to kill you," Marcus continued, his eyes locked on Trenton. "That would be too easy. I'm going to do something worse. I'm going to make sure everyone sees exactly who you are." He pulled out his phone, aimed it at Trenton's face, and took a photo. "Smile, son. You're about to go viral." Trenton's face went from pale to purple. "You can't." "I already did," Marcus cut him off. "Now you have two choices. You can leave right now, and I mean leave the state, or you can wait for the police to arrive and explain to them why you tortured an animal while your friends filmed it." "That video's gone," Chad said quickly, fumbling with his phone. "I deleted it." "Cloud backup," Marcus said. "Nothing's ever really deleted, but I appreciate you confessing there was a video. That's very helpful." He knelt beside Emma, his tone shifting completely, from warrior to medic. "Ma'am, I need to see the puppy. I have medical training. Let me help." Emma looked up at him, her face streaked with tears, her eyes wild with grief. "She's dying. Oh, God, she's dying." "Not today," Marcus said firmly. "Not on my watch." He took the puppy gently, assessing the burns with practiced efficiency. Atlas moved beside him, sniffing the small dog, whining softly. Marcus looked up at Trenton, who still hadn't moved. "You're still here. Interesting choice." In the distance, sirens began to wail. Someone had called 911. Trenton's confidence finally shattered. "This isn't over," he snarled, backing away. "My father will destroy you, both of you." "He's welcome to try," Marcus said calmly. "Now get out of my sight before I forget I'm a commissioned officer and start thinking like a SEAL." Trenton ran, his friends scrambling after him, their expensive shoes slipping on the wet pavement. Marcus turned his full attention to the dying puppy in his hands and the broken woman beside him. "What's her name?" he asked gently. "Hope," Emma whispered. Marcus looked at the burns, at the shallow breathing, at the odds. Then he looked at Emma's face, at the desperate prayer in her eyes. "Okay, Hope," Marcus said softly. "Let's get you to someone who can help. Atlas, heel." The big German shepherd moved beside them, standing guard, as Marcus carried the puppy toward the street where the sirens were getting closer. Behind them, the alley was empty, except for the coffee pot and the cardboard that had been home. The storm had passed, but the war was just beginning. The police cruiser arrived first, followed by an ambulance. Officer Sarah Martinez stepped out, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes that had seen too much of humanity's worst. She took one look at the scene. The burned puppy, Emma's scalded hands, Marcus's military bearing, Atlas's protective stance, and her hand moved away from her weapon to her radio. "Dispatch, this is Martinez. I need animal control and a detective at Sullivan's Market, Loden Dock Alley. Possible felony animal cruelty. Victim needs medical transport." She turned to Marcus. "You're the witness?" "I'm the witness," Marcus confirmed. 3 suspects, early 20s, fled on foot toward the marina approximately 4 minutes ago. Leader identified himself as Trenton Ashford, son of the developer. They tortured this animal. The woman tried to stop them and was assaulted. Martinez's expression hardened. Ashford's kid? You know him? Every cop in Port Madison knows him. He's untouchable. His father's lawyers have buried 6 complaints in the last 2 years. She looked at Emma. No offense, ma'am, but if it's your word against his, you won't win. It's not just her word, Marcus said. He held up his phone. I have photos. They have video. And I'm a commissioned officer with no reason to lie. Martinez smiled grimly. Then maybe this time will be different. She looked at the puppy. How bad? 2nd-degree burns, shock, possible internal injuries from the impact, Marcus rattled off. She needs a veterinarian in the next 30 minutes, or she won't make it. The EMTs approached with a gurney for Emma, but she refused to let go of hope. I'm not leaving her, Emma said, her voice hoarse. If she dies, I want to be there. Marcus made a decision. Officer, I'm taking the dog to the emergency vet on Harbor Road. This woman is coming with me. We'll give statements after the animal is stabilized. Martinez should have objected. Protocol said witnesses stayed at the scene, but she looked at Emma's face, at the dying puppy, at the warrior who'd stepped in when no one else would. You have 2 hours, Martinez said. Then I need you both at the station. Understood? Understood. Marcus turned to Emma, offering his hand. Can you walk? She nodded, taking his hand with her burned, trembling fingers. Together, with Atlas leading the way like a furry guardian angel, they walked toward Marcus's truck. The war was just beginning. But for the first time in a long time, Emma wasn't fighting alone. The Harbor Road Veterinary Emergency Clinic smelled of antiseptic and fear. The universal scent of places where life and death negotiated terms. Dr. Rachel Mora was a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair pulled into a tight bun and hands that moved with the confidence of 30 years saving animals that others had given up on. She took one look at Hope and didn't waste time with questions. Exam room 3. Now. Marcus carried the puppy through the swinging doors while Emma followed, leaving bloody handprints on the doorframe. Atlas remained in the waiting room, sitting at attention, his eyes fixed on the door his partner had disappeared through. Inside the exam room, Dr. Mora worked with brutal efficiency. 2nd-degree burns on the abdomen, paws, and muzzle. Core temperature's dropping. She's going into shock. She looked at Marcus. You military? Navy? Combat medic trained? Good. Hold her, gentle but firm. She inserted an IV line so small it looked like thread, pushing warm fluids and pain medication. Talk to her. She needs to hear a calm voice. Marcus leaned close to the puppy's ear. You're okay, Hope. You're safe now. The bad men are gone. You're going to make it because you're a fighter. I can tell. You've got warrior blood. His voice was soft, rhythmic, the same tone he'd used with wounded soldiers in the field when morphine wasn't enough and hope was all they had left. Emma stood in the corner, shaking, her burned hands hanging useless at her sides. A vet tech tried to lead her away to treat her injuries, but she refused to move. Her eyes locked on the puppy. She saved me, Emma whispered. When I had nothing, she gave me a reason to wake up. If she dies, she's not going to die. Dr. Mora cut her off, not unkindly. But she needs you to be strong. Can you do that? Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face. For 20 minutes they worked in coordinated silence. Dr. Mora cleaned the burns with saline, applied antimicrobial ointment, and wrapped the tiny body in sterile bandages. Marcus monitored vitals, adjusting the IV drip when the heart rate fluctuated. Finally, Hope's breathing steadied. Her eyes, clouded with pain, opened slightly, finding Emma's face. The puppy's tail twitched. Once, twice. "There you are," Dr. Mora said softly. "Welcome back, little one." Emma collapsed against the wall, sobbing with relief. Dr. Mora turned to Marcus, wiping her hands. "She'll need round-the-clock monitoring for the next 72 hours. The burns are serious but manageable. The real danger is infection. She'll need antibiotics, pain management, and surgical-grade wound care." She paused. "It's going to cost around $3,000. The number hung in the air like a guillotine. Emma's face crumpled. I don't have $3,000. I don't have $3. She looked at Hope, then at Marcus, then at the floor. Can you just make her comfortable? I don't want her to suffer." "You're asking me to euthanize her?" Dr. Mora asked gently. "I'm asking you to let her go peacefully," Emma whispered, "because I can't save her. I can't save anything." Marcus stood up slowly. He pulled out his wallet and placed a credit card on the counter. "Bill it to me. All of it. Whatever she needs." Emma stared at him. "You can't." "I already did," Marcus said firmly. "Consider it a combat medic's professional pride. I don't lose patience." "But you don't even know me," Emma protested. "Why would you—" Marcus looked at her, his gray eyes intense. "Because a long time ago someone helped me when I had nothing. Because that puppy didn't ask to be born into a world where rich kids torture animals for fun. And because if we don't stand up for the defenseless, then what the hell are we fighting for?" Before Emma could respond, the clinic door burst open. Officer Martinez strode in, followed by a man in an expensive suit who radiated authority and barely contained rage. "Lieutenant Commander Kane," Martinez said. "This is Detective Robert Chen. He'd like a word." Detective Chen was in his 40s, with sharp eyes and a face that had seen every variation of human cruelty. He looked at Marcus, at Emma, at the bandaged puppy. "I've reviewed Officer Martinez's initial report," Chen said. "I've also received a call from Trenton Ashford III, the father. He's claiming you assaulted his son and fabricated this entire incident." Marcus's expression didn't change. "Is that what he's claiming?" "He's claiming you have a history of PTSD, that you attacked 3 innocent young men, and that you're coercing this woman to support a false narrative." Chen pulled out a notepad. "He's also threatening to sue the city, the police department, and you personally for defamation." "Interesting," Marcus said calmly. "Did he mention the video?" Chen's eyes sharpened. "What video?" Marcus pulled out his phone and handed it to the detective. The video his son's friends recorded of the entire attack. The one they uploaded to their cloud storage before they tried to delete it. "I have the account information if you need a warrant." Chen's eyebrows rose. He scrolled through Marcus's phone, watching the footage Marcus had managed to screen capture from Chad's briefly visible phone screen when it was dropped. The detective's face turned to stone. "Jesus Christ," Chen muttered. That's torture. That's felony animal cruelty with aggravating factors." "It's also assault, battery, and destruction of property," Marcus added. "That puppy belongs to Ms. Reeves. She has documentation." "I have her vaccination records," Emma said quietly, "from the free clinic on 3rd Street. They're in my bag." Chen looked at Emma, really looked at her, seeing past the homeless exterior to the terrified woman who'd just had everything taken from her. "Ma'am, I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm going to need a formal statement, but I want you to know we're taking this seriously." "Are you?" Emma asked, her voice hollow. "Because every cop I've ever met told me people like me don't matter, that people like him always win." Chen closed Marcus's phone and handed it back. "Maybe they usually do, but not today." He turned to Martinez. "Put out a bolo for Trenton Ashford III, arrest warrant for felony animal cruelty, assault, and intimidation of a witness. I want him in custody before his father's lawyers can hide him." Martinez grinned and keyed her radio. Chen looked at Marcus. "You're a witness in a felony case now, Commander. That means you can't leave town until trial." "I have 13 days left of leave," Marcus replied. "More than enough time." "And after that?" "After that, you'll have my testimony on record, my sworn statement, and every photograph I took. My team's been looking for an excuse to extend my leave anyway. Something about mandatory counseling." Chen nodded, then hesitated. "Off the record, thank you for stepping in. Most people would have walked past." "I'm not most people," Marcus said simply. After Chen left, Dr. Mora approached with paperwork and a small carrier. "Hope's stable enough to transport, but she needs a clean, warm, quiet place to recover. Do either of you have—" She stopped, seeing Emma's face. "She's coming home with me," Marcus said. "Both of them." Emma shook her head. "I can't. You've done enough. I'll figure something out." "You'll figure it out at my place," Marcus said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "I have a spare room, a working shower, and a refrigerator full of actual food. Atlas needs someone to help monitor Hope anyway. Consider it a job, room and board in exchange for puppy nursing." Emma looked at this stranger who'd appeared out of nowhere like an avenging angel. "Why are you doing this?" Marcus thought about the question. He thought about the men he'd lost, the battles he'd won, the oath he'd taken to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. "Because someone has to," he said simply. "And today, that someone is me." The drive to Marcus's house was silent except for Hope's occasional whimper and Atlas's heavy breathing from the back seat. Emma sat in the passenger seat of Marcus's truck, staring at her bandaged hands, trying to process the fact that her life had changed completely in the span of 2 hours. Marcus lived in a modest craftsman-style house on the edge of town, inherited from his father. It wasn't fancy, but it was solid. Cedar shingles, a wraparound porch, and a yard that backed up to the forest. He carried Hope inside while Emma followed hesitantly, Atlas trotting beside her like a furry escort. The interior was Spartan but clean, military clean. Everything had a place, and everything was in its place. "Guest room is upstairs, first door on the left," Marcus said, setting Hope's carrier gently on the couch. "Bathroom has clean towels. There's clothes in the closet. My sister's stuff from when she visits. Help yourself." Emma stood in the doorway, looking like she might bolt at any moment. "I don't understand why you're being nice to me." Marcus straightened up, meeting her eyes. "You don't need to understand it. You just need to accept it." "But I'm nobody," Emma said, her voice breaking. "That's what he said. Trenton. He said I was nobody." "Trenton Ashford is a coward who tortures puppies," Marcus said flatly. "His opinion is worth less than nothing." He gestured to the house. "You're safe here. No one's going to hurt you. No one's going to judge you. And tomorrow, we're going to make sure that kid never hurts anyone again." Emma nodded slowly, then disappeared upstairs. Marcus sat on the couch, gently checking Hope's vitals. Atlas lay beside him, resting his big head on Marcus's knee, a gesture of comfort the dog had learned in the years after combat. "We picked up another stray, buddy," Marcus murmured, scratching behind Atlas's ears. "You okay with that?" Atlas huffed, his tail thumping once against the floor. Translation: "As long as she feeds me bacon, we're good." An hour later, Emma came downstairs transformed. Clean hair, borrowed jeans and sweatshirt, bandaged hands freshly wrapped. She looked younger, less haunted, though the trauma still lived in her eyes. "I made tea," Marcus said, gesturing to the kitchen. "And there's leftover lasagna if you're hungry." "I'm starving," Emma admitted quietly. "I haven't had a real meal in, I don't remember." They sat at the kitchen table in awkward silence, Emma eating slowly, savoring every bite like it might be her last. Marcus watched her, not with pity, but with the clinical assessment of someone evaluating an asset. "Tell me about the tremor," he said finally. Emma's fork froze halfway to her mouth. "How did you—" "Your right hand shakes when you're stressed. You favor your left for precise movements. It's neurological, not psychological." Emma set down the fork. "Essential tremor, hereditary. Got worse 2 years ago. Lost my job as a paralegal because I couldn't type anymore. Lost my insurance. Lost everything." She looked at her hands. "The pills help, but they cost $300 a month. I chose rent over medication. Then I couldn't afford either. CTA HER2 placement. If this story has you on the edge of your seat, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more incredible true stories of courage and loyalty." "What's the medication?" Marcus asked. "Propranolol. It's a beta blocker, but without insurance." "The VA has a pharmacy," Marcus interrupted. "They work with civilians on medication costs. I'll make some calls tomorrow." Emma stared at him. "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up, walked to a cabinet, and pulled out a worn shoebox. He opened it, revealing medals, ribbons, and photographs. He selected one photo and slid it across the table. It showed a younger Marcus in uniform, standing beside a woman in civilian clothes. She was thin, haunted, with the same hollow look Emma had worn in the alley. "Her name was Sarah," Marcus said quietly. "I met her outside a shelter in Virginia Beach. She was a veteran, Marine Corps. She'd lost everything after an ID gave her a traumatic brain injury. The VA was backlogged. Her disability claim was stuck in bureaucracy. She was living under a bridge." Emma looked at the photo, then at Marcus. "What happened to her?" "I helped her navigate the system, got her into housing, got her medical care. She got her life back." Marcus took the photo back, staring at it. 3 years later, she became a social worker. Now she runs a veterans shelter in Norfolk. She saves people the way I saved her." He looked at Emma. "You asked why I'm helping you. Because Sarah taught me that one act of kindness can change everything. Because the difference between surviving and thriving is sometimes just one person who refuses to walk past." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how to repay you." "You don't repay it," Marcus said. "You pay it forward. When you're back on your feet, you help the next person. That's how we win." From the couch, Hope let out a soft bark, as if agreeing. Atlas walked over and placed his head on Emma's knee, a gesture of acceptance. The pack had a new member. The next morning, Emma woke to sunlight streaming through actual curtains in an actual bed. For a moment, she panicked, forgetting where she was, her body conditioned to expect concrete and danger. Then she remembered. The alley, the attack, the SEAL who'd appeared like something out of a story. She walked downstairs carefully, her burned hands throbbing despite the painkillers. The smell of coffee and bacon drew her to the kitchen like a beacon. Marcus stood at the stove, cooking with the same methodical precision he applied to everything. Atlas sat beside him, drooling hopefully. Hope's carrier was on the table, the puppy awake and watching, everything with bright, curious eyes. "Morning," Marcus said without turning around. "How'd you sleep?" "Like I was dead," Emma admitted. "I forgot what a mattress felt like. Coffee's fresh, bacon's almost done. How are your hands?" "Painful, but manageable." Marcus plated the food and set it in front of her. 3 eggs, 4 strips of bacon, toast with actual butter. A feast. "I called the VA pharmacy," Marcus said, sitting down with his own plate. "They have a hardship program. I explained your situation. You have an appointment this afternoon to get your medication. First month is free. After that, it's $15. Emma's fork clattered to the plate. $15? My prescription was $300. "Welcome to the magic of bulk government purchasing," Marcus said with a slight smile. "The system's broken, but there are workarounds if you know who to call." "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll take the appointment." "I will. Thank you." They ate in comfortable silence. Marcus broke off small pieces of bacon and fed them to Hope, who gobbled them down with enthusiasm, her tail wagging despite her bandages. "She's a fighter," Marcus observed. "Good instincts. She'll make a fine dog once she heals." "If I can keep her," Emma said quietly. "Once I find a place, most rentals don't allow pets." "Then we find a place that does," Marcus said firmly. "One problem at a time, Emma. Today we focus on getting you medicated and giving your statement to Detective Chen. Tomorrow we find you a job. Next week we find you housing. We build back up, brick by brick." Emma looked at this stranger who'd become her savior, her advocate, her unlikely friend. "You're a good man, Marcus Kane." "I'm a stubborn man," Marcus corrected. "There's a difference." Atlas barked once, as if to say, "He's both." Marcus's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression darkened. "That's Detective Chen. Trenton Ashford's father just posted $2 million bail. He's out." Emma's blood ran cold. "He's going to come after us." Marcus looked at her, his gray eyes calm and certain. "Let him try." He stood up, walking to a locked cabinet in the corner. He opened it, revealing a tactical vest, communication equipment, and a combat knife. "I spent 10 years protecting people from threats overseas," Marcus said quietly. "I'm pretty good at it." The warrior had just declared war on a billionaire, and the billionaire had no idea what was coming. Detective Robert Chen sat in his office at the Port Madison Police Department, staring at a file that was growing thicker by the hour. What had started as a simple animal cruelty case was metastasizing into something far darker. His phone rang. It was Officer Martinez. "Chen, you need to see this," she said. "I've been pulling security footage from Sullivan's Market like you asked. You're not going to believe what I found." 20 minutes later, Chen was watching grainy footage from the market's rear security camera. The timestamp showed incidents spanning back 6 months, all involving Trenton Ashford III. August 15th. Trenton and his friends cornering a delivery driver, taking his phone, throwing it into the harbor. September 22nd. Trenton spray-painting obscenities on the wall where homeless people sheltered. October 3rd. Trenton and friends attacking a man's service dog with a baseball bat. The dog survived. The man, a veteran, had filed a complaint that mysteriously disappeared. November 18th. Trenton setting fire to a homeless encampment while people slept inside. Jesus Christ, Chen muttered. This kid's a serial predator. It gets worse, Martinez said. She pulled up another file. I talked to the county prosecutor's office. Every complaint against Trenton Ashford was dropped or settled with NDAs. The Ashford family attorney, Malcolm Voss, has a reputation for burying cases with money and intimidation. Where's Voss now? At the Ashford estate, preparing their defense strategy. Chen leaned back in his chair. They're going to argue PTSD for the SEAL, character assassination. They'll paint Emma as an unreliable witness because she's homeless. Will it work? It might, Chen admitted, except for one thing. Marcus Kane isn't just any witness. He's a decorated SEAL with zero history of instability, and that video evidence is damning. His phone buzzed again. This time it was an unknown number. Detective Chen. This is Trenton Ashford II. The voice was cold, authoritative, used to getting what it wanted. I'm calling to inform you that my son will be filing charges against Marcus Kane for assault, false imprisonment, and defamation. Is that so? Chen replied calmly. My attorneys have reviewed the case. Your so-called evidence is circumstantial. The animal in question was a stray with no legal owner. My son was performing a civic duty by removing a health hazard. The animal in question had vaccination records and an owner, Chen countered, and your son was recorded committing felony animal cruelty. That video was obtained illegally, Ashford Sr. snapped. It's inadmissible. Actually, it was recorded by your son's friend in a public space. Completely legal, but I appreciate you confirming its existence. There was a pause. Then Ashford's voice dropped into something darker. Detective Chen, I employ 3,000 people in this city. I sit on the city council. I fund your police department's budget. Are you really going to throw that away to protect some homeless woman and a damaged soldier? I took an oath, Chen said quietly. It didn't have an exception clause for rich people. Everyone has a price, detective. What's yours? Chen smiled grimly. You can't afford it. He hung up. Martinez was staring at him. That was either really brave or really stupid. Probably both, Chen admitted. But I'm tired of watching these people treat human beings like garbage. He stood up. Call Commander Kane. Tell him to come to the station. I want his full testimony on record before Ashford's lawyers start filing motions. Meanwhile, at Marcus's house, the attack came not with bullets but with phones. Emma's cell, an ancient prepaid flip phone, rang first. An unknown number. Hello? Is this Emma Reeves? The voice was professional, female, vaguely threatening. Yes? This is Amanda Cross from Child Protective Services. We've received a report that you're currently harboring an animal in an unsafe environment. We need to inspect your living situation immediately. Emma's blood ran cold. I don't have children. Why are you? Our records show you're cohabiting with a minor animal. Without proper housing, we're obligated to investigate. Where are you currently residing? Emma hung up, her hands shaking. Marcus's phone rang next. A text message from an unknown number. You're protecting a criminal. Walk away before you end up in jail with her. Then Atlas started barking at the window. Marcus moved to the glass, his body language shifting instantly from civilian to operator. Outside, a car he didn't recognize was parked across the street. A man with a camera was taking photos of the house. "Private investigator," Marcus muttered. "They're building a harassment case, trying to make us look unstable." Emma stood in the center of the living room holding Hope's carrier, looking like she was about to run. "This is what they do. They break you down until you give up. I should leave. You should sit down," Marcus said firmly, "because running is what they want. They want you scared and isolated so there's no one to contradict their story." "But they're going to destroy you too," Emma protested. "Your career, your life." "They can try," Marcus said. He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Sam, it's Marcus Kane." "Yeah, I'm good. Listen, I need a favor. You remember that thing you said about always having my six? I'm calling that in." 30 minutes later, 3 vehicles pulled up to Marcus's house. From the first emerged Sam Rodriguez, a fellow SEAL from Marcus's team, a compact, muscular man with tattoos that told stories in ink. From the second came Dr. Rachel Mora, the veterinarian who'd saved Hope. From the third came Dorothy Chen from the Veterans Center, carrying a casserole and righteous anger. "Heard you were fighting billionaires," Sam said, clapping Marcus on the shoulder. "Figured you could use backup." "I brought Hope's medical records," Dr. Mora announced. "Documented evidence of torture, admissible in court." "I brought the contact list for every veteran in Port Madison," Dorothy added. "The Ashfords want a war. Let's show them what a real battalion looks like." Marcus looked at his assembled team, warriors, healers, advocates, and felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope? "Welcome to the fight," Marcus said. Emma stood in the doorway, watching these strangers rally around her, and for the first time since the alley, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, the world had people in it who still fought for what was right. From inside the house, Hope barked, a small, defiant sound that said, "We're not giving up." The conspiracy had deepened, but so had the resistance. The war room was Marcus's dining room table, now covered with files, photographs, and legal documents. Sam had brought his laptop with encrypted communication software. Dr. Mora had brought every piece of evidence from Hope's treatment. Dorothy had brought the righteous fury of an entire community. "Okay," Marcus said, taking command like he was briefing a mission. "Here's what we know. Trenton Ashford has a pattern of violence. Detective Chen has security footage of multiple incidents. The problem is the Ashford legal team has successfully buried every previous complaint." "So, what's different this time?" Emma asked quietly. "You are," Dorothy said firmly. "Every other victim took the settlement money and signed an NDA. You're not going away." "And neither is the evidence," Dr. Mora added. She pulled out her phone, showing photos of Hope's injuries. "These burns tell a story. The pattern, the depth, the location. It's consistent with immersion in hot liquid. A defense attorney can't explain that away." Sam pulled up a file on his laptop. "I did some digging on Ashford Development. They're leveraged to hell. The company looks profitable, but they've got $200 million in debt. They're one major lawsuit away from bankruptcy." Marcus's eyes narrowed. So Trenton's attack on Emma wasn't random. They want that entire block for redevelopment. Sullivan's Market is the last holdout. "Exactly," Sam confirmed. "If they can drive out the homeless population and pressure Mrs. Sullivan to sell, they flip the property for $50 million profit." "So this was ethnic cleansing," Emma said bitterly. "Economic ethnic cleansing." "Yes," Marcus said bluntly. "But here's the thing about bullies. They're only powerful when no one fights back." Atlas, who'd been lying under the table, suddenly stood up. His ears swiveled toward the front door, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Marcus raised his fist, a silent command for quiet. Sam immediately moved to the window, peering through the blinds. Black SUV, 2 men in suits, Sam reported. Legal plates, lawyers, not cops. Right on schedule, Marcus muttered. He turned to Emma. Stay here. Don't open the door for anyone except Chen. The doorbell rang. Marcus answered it, his body language relaxed but ready. 2 men in expensive suits stood on the porch. The lead attorney, Malcolm Voss, was in his 50s with silver hair and a smile that promised pain. Lieutenant Commander Kane, Voss said smoothly. I represent the Ashford family. May I come in? No. Voss's smile didn't falter. I'm here to offer you a settlement. $50,000 for your silence. Drop your testimony, convince the woman to drop her complaint, and everyone walks away happy. Not interested. Commander, I've reviewed your service record. You're a hero. It would be a shame if that reputation was damaged by association with a homeless drug addict who's manipulating you. Marcus's expression didn't change. Emma Reeves is not a drug addict. She has a medical condition, and manipulation implies I'm not smart enough to assess the situation myself. I'm trying to help you, Voss said, his voice hardening. The Ashfords own this town. They own the mayor, the city council, half the police force. You're a good soldier, but you're out of your depth. Am I? Marcus replied calmly. Because from where I'm standing, your client committed a felony on camera, and you're currently attempting to bribe a witness. That's obstruction of justice. I'm recording this conversation, by the way. Voss's smile evaporated. You're making a mistake. I've made plenty of mistakes, Marcus said. This isn't one of them. He closed the door in the lawyer's face. Inside, Sam was grinning. That was beautiful. That was stupid, Marcus corrected. We just declared war on the most powerful family in the city. Good, Dorothy said firmly. I'm tired of living in a place where money determines justice. Dr. Mora stood up. I'm calling every vet in the county. We're organizing a protest at City Hall. Peaceful, legal, visible. I'll coordinate with Chen, Sam added. We need to make sure the evidence is airtight before they file motions to suppress. Emma sat quietly, watching these people, strangers 24 hours ago, mobilize around her like a military operation. I don't understand, she whispered. Why are you all doing this? Marcus crouched beside her chair, his gray eyes level with hers. Because that's what you do when you're part of something bigger than yourself. The team's taught me that. You don't leave people behind. You don't quit when things get hard. And you sure as hell don't let bullies win. Atlas walked over and placed his head on Emma's knee. Hope, from her carrier, barked in agreement. We're a pack now, Marcus said simply, and packs protect their own. Outside, Malcolm Voss sat in his SUV, dialing Trenton Ashford II. We have a problem, Voss said. Kane's not backing down. Neither is the woman. Then destroy them, Ashford Sr. replied coldly. I don't care how. Use every resource we have. Discredit them, bankrupt them, ruin them. Understood. But what Ashford didn't know, what his money and power had prevented him from seeing, was that Marcus Kane had spent a decade fighting enemies with far more resources, far better weapons, and far less to lose. And he'd never lost yet. The Port Madison City Council meeting was scheduled for 7 p.m. on a Thursday. Normally, it drew maybe a dozen attendees, mostly developers seeking permits and retirees with complaints about noise ordinances. Tonight, the chamber was packed with over 300 people. They filled every seat, lined the walls and spilled out into the hallway. Veterans in service caps, veterinarians in scrubs, homeless, advocates with handmade signs, local business owners who'd been pushed around by Ashford Development for years. And at the center of it all, sitting in the front row, was Marcus Kane in his dress uniform, Emma Reeves in borrowed clothes that actually fit, and Atlas wearing his service vest. Hope was safely at home with Dorothy, recovering but stable. Trenton Ashford II sat on the opposite side of the chamber, flanked by his legal team and his son, who looked pale and nervous. Trenton III wore a designer suit and sunglasses indoors, trying to maintain the illusion of power. The mayor, Gerald Hutchins, a man who'd accepted Ashford campaign donations for a decade, called the meeting to order with a trembling voice. "We have several public comments tonight," Hutchins began. "Please keep remarks to 3 minutes. Actually," Detective Chen stood up, "I have an announcement. Trenton Ashford III is under formal indictment for felony animal cruelty, assault, and witness intimidation. There's a warrant for his arrest, which I'm executing right now." The chamber erupted. Trenton III tried to run, but 2 uniformed officers blocked the exit. They cuffed him, gently, professionally, and read him his rights while cameras flashed. "This is a sham," Ashford Sr. roared, standing up. "This is a politically motivated witch hunt orchestrated by a mentally unstable veteran." Marcus stood up slowly. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Mr. Ashford," Marcus said, his voice cutting through the chaos, "I am Lieutenant Commander Marcus Kane, United States Navy SEALs. I have been evaluated by military psychiatrists 6 times in the last 2 years. I am not unstable. I am a witness to your son committing felony animal cruelty." He pulled out a tablet and held it up. "This is video evidence showing your son torturing a puppy. This is Dr. Mora's medical report documenting the injuries. This is Ms. Reeves's testimony, corroborated by security footage." Ashford Sr.'s face turned purple. "You have no idea what you're doing. I will bury you. I will destroy you. You'll lose your career, your home, everything." "No," Marcus interrupted. "You won't, because I don't have anything you can take. I don't have debt. I don't have political ambitions. I don't have secrets you can expose. All I have is the truth." He looked around the chamber at the crowd. "And I'm not alone." Sam stood up. "Navy SEAL, Team 3. I stand with Commander Kane." Dr. Mora stood. "Veterinarian, 30 years. I stand with the evidence." Dorothy stood. "Army nurse, Vietnam. I stand with my community." One by one, people rose. Veterans, doctors, teachers, store owners. The invisible people Ashford had ignored for years were suddenly very visible. "You can't bribe all of us," Marcus said quietly. "You can't intimidate all of us, and you can't silence the truth." The mayor looked around the chamber, seeing his political future crumbling. He'd bet on the wrong side, and he knew it. "The council will review this matter," Hutchins said weakly. "The council will do more than that," City Councilwoman Patricia Okafor said, standing up. She was the one council member who'd never accepted Ashford money. "I'm calling for a vote of no confidence in the mayor and a full audit of Ashford Development's permits. All in favor?" 4 of the 7 council members raised their hands. It was enough. Ashford Sr. stared at the room, watching his empire crack. He looked at his son in handcuffs, at the prosecutor taking notes, at the sea of faces who were no longer afraid. "This isn't over," Ashford hissed. "Yes," Marcus said quietly, "it is." The officers led Trenton III away. The prosecutor served Ashford Sr. with a subpoena. The crowd didn't cheer. They simply watched in satisfied silence as justice, delayed for so long, finally arrived. Outside, Emma stood on the steps of City Hall, breathing in the cool night air. "Is it really over?" she asked. Marcus looked at the stars beginning to emerge through the clouds. "The battle is, but the work of rebuilding, that's just beginning." "I'm ready," Emma said softly. "For the first time in 2 years, I'm actually ready." Atlas barked once, sharp and clear. Translation: "Let's go home." 6 months later, Port Madison looked different. Not in the obvious ways. The buildings were the same. The rain still fell. The ferries still ran on schedule. But there was a shift in the air, a sense that something fundamental had changed. Trenton Ashford III was convicted on all counts: felony animal cruelty, assault, witness intimidation. The judge, a woman who'd fostered rescue dogs for 20 years, sentenced him to 3 years in prison with no possibility of early release, plus 500 hours of community service at an animal shelter upon release. "Perhaps," Judge Martinez had said during sentencing, "spending time with the creatures you view as beneath will teach you something about humanity." Trenton Ashford II's real estate empire collapsed under the weight of investigations, audits, and lawsuits from other victims who'd finally found the courage to come forward. Ashford Development filed for bankruptcy. The properties were sold to a community development corporation that prioritized affordable housing. Sullivan's Market stayed in the family. Mrs. Sullivan, now 84, hired Emma as her assistant manager. The mayor resigned in disgrace. City Councilwoman Okafor won the special election in a landslide. Detective Chen was promoted to lieutenant and started a task force focusing on crimes against vulnerable populations. Dr. Mora opened a second clinic specifically for treating animals belonging to homeless owners, free of charge, funded by community donations. And Marcus? Marcus did something he hadn't done in 10 years. He stayed. He'd been offered reinstatement with his team, full honors, a promotion to Master Chief. Instead, he'd requested an honorable discharge and taken a job teaching survival skills and tactical medicine to first responders at the community college. "Why?" his commanding officer had asked over a secure call. "Because I found a different mission," Marcus had replied. "One that matters just as much." The grand opening of Hope's Haven was on a Saturday in June when the Pacific Northwest finally remembered what sunshine looked like. The building, formerly a condemned warehouse on the edge of town, had been transformed into a combination homeless shelter, veterinary clinic, and job training center. The renovation was funded by a coalition of local businesses, veteran organizations, and a surprisingly large GoFundMe campaign that had gone viral. Above the door, a hand-carved wooden sign showed a German Shepherd puppy with a white stripe down her nose. Emma stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony wearing professional clothes that she'd bought with her first paycheck, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. The tremor in her hand was barely noticeable now, controlled by medication that cost her $15 a month. She held the scissors, flanked by Marcus on one side and Dorothy on the other. "This place exists because people refuse to look away," Emma said, her voice carrying across the crowd. "Because a stranger decided I was worth saving. Because a puppy reminded us all that innocence deserves protection." She cut the ribbon. The crowd applauded. Not the polite golf clap of obligatory support, but genuine, thunderous approval. Inside, the first floor held a veterinary clinic where Dr. Mora was already treating a 3-legged pit bull. The second floor had transitional housing, Small but dignified rooms where people could rebuild their lives without the constant terror of the streets. The third floor was dedicated to job training, computer skills, resume building, interview coaching. In the corner of the lobby, in a place of honor, was a photo. It showed Emma on the day she'd been attacked, holding Hope in the alley. Beside it was another photo. Emma, 6 months later, healthy and smiling, Hope fully grown at her feet. The caption read, "Everyone deserves a second chance." Marcus stood in the corner, watching the ceremony with Atlas at his side. The old dog was grayer now, moving slower, but his eyes were still sharp. Sam approached, clapping him on the shoulder. "You did good, brother." "We did good," Marcus corrected. "All of us? You gonna tell her?" Marcus looked at Emma, who was giving a reporter an interview. "Tell her what?" "That you're in love with her," Sam said bluntly. "Don't make me pull rank, Commander. I've seen how you look at her." Marcus smiled slightly. "One day, when she's ready, when she's rebuilt enough that she doesn't think she owes me anything, when we're equals. That day might be closer than you think," Sam observed. Across the room, Emma looked up. She caught Marcus's eye. She smiled, not the broken smile of a victim, but the genuine smile of a woman who'd survived hell and come out stronger. She mouthed, "Thank you." Marcus nodded once. A promise. A bond. Atlas huffed, his tail thumping against the floor. Hope, now 40 pounds of energy and enthusiasm, bounded over and tackled Atlas in a playful wrestling match. The old war dog tolerated it with patient dignity, occasionally pawing the younger dog to establish who was in charge. The pack had grown. The mission had evolved. But the core remained the same. Protect the defenseless, stand up to evil, and never, ever walk past someone in need. That evening, Marcus stood on the beach where the Columbia River met the Pacific Ocean. The sun was setting in shades of amber and rose, painting the water in liquid gold. Atlas sat beside him, the old dog's muzzle gray, his body showing the wear of years and battles. But he was content. His job done, his warrior home. Emma walked up behind them, Hope trotting beside her. The puppy was no longer small. She was a beautiful young German shepherd, strong and confident. "Thought I'd find you here," Emma said, standing beside Marcus. "I come here when I need to think," Marcus replied. "The water reminds me that everything changes. Tides rise, tides fall. Nothing stays the same forever." "Is that a good thing?" "Usually," Marcus said. "Sometimes change is how we heal." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the waves. "I got the apartment," Emma said finally. "The one on Maple Street, 2 bedrooms. They allow dogs." She hesitated. "There's enough space for 2 dogs, actually. If you wanted to, if Atlas wanted to." Marcus looked at his dog. Atlas was staring at Hope with something like pride, a veteran watching a rookie become a warrior. "He'd like that," Marcus said, "but I come with the dog, package deal." Emma smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." Marcus turned to face her. "Emma, I need you to understand something. I didn't help you because I expected anything. You don't owe me." "I know," Emma interrupted, "but I'm not asking because I owe you. I'm asking because I want you there, because you're family, because I love you." The words hung in the air, brave and vulnerable. Marcus reached out, taking her hand, the one with the tremor, the one that had been burned saving Hope. He held it gently. "I love you too," he said simply. They kissed as the sun dropped below the horizon. 2 broken people who'd found each other in the wreckage and built something beautiful. Atlas and Hope sat side by side, watching the ocean, keeping guard as they always would, because that's what warriors do. That's what families do. They protect, they serve, they love without condition. And sometimes, when the world is dark and cruel, they remind us that there are still heroes who walk among us, not because of their rank or their medals, but because of their choice to stand between the innocent and the darkness. The waves rolled in, the stars emerged, the pack walked home together, and somewhere, in alleys and shelters across the country, other stories were beginning. Other warriors were stepping forward. Other broken people were finding hope, because that's how it spreads, one act of courage at a time, one person refusing to walk past someone in need, one moment of choosing kindness over cruelty. That's how we change the world. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to be reminded that heroes still exist. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and let us know in the comments. What was your favorite moment? Was it Atlas and Hope's bond, Marcus's protection, or the moment justice was served? We read every comment. God bless, and see you in the next story.